Well, welcome to this next webinar in the Shoesmith's Shared and Halved series on COVID-19 topics. Because as we all know, a problem shared is a problem halved. My name is Sebastian Price. I'm a partner in the Shoesmith's Commercial Group, and I'm in charge of today's webinar. So, of course, those of you who've been on these before will have heard this before, but for those of you where this is the first of these webinars you've joined, just a few things that I'll mention. First of all, that our Shared and Halved program, the idea is to bring together different interest groups to share thoughts, insights and questions. And this one obviously is for in-house lawyers. And for you, they're very much intended as a bite-sized session just for a sort of half-hour coffee break with practical tips. It's the 1st of May, so workers of the world unite. And the reason I say that is that's what this is all about. The aim is to help each of us in this in-house lawyer group deal with the challenges brought by COVID-19. And as we keep on saying, this will end. You know, we know things are going to be different, I'm sure they will, but it's going to end in some way. So let's make sure we're ready for that time, for when it does. And to help with that, please do keep an eye on our main COVID-19 hub on our website, where we've put a special place for you, for in-house lawyers. We're putting up useful resources there, such as key takeaway notes, the recording of this session, for example, and information on future webinars. And we'll keep that constantly updated. And we want these sessions to be absolutely in line with what's useful for you, what you want to know. So please do tell us any ideas you've got for topics, questions, anything at all, and we'll shape webinars around what you want. And that's actually what we've done here. This session, which looks at our own well-being and staying connected with our business and our networks. This, of course, is the second session we've run on the theme of well-being, and there's been so much demand to have another, which is right, isn't it? Because it's so important for mental health and fundamental to how we can continue to work effectively, which in turn is what will make us ready, as I say, ready for when lockdown or whatever it is ends. And the final thing to say is, of course, if you've got questions during the session, please do send them in using the Q&A function, and we'll try and answer them. So let me introduce our panel, our speakers. Darren Smith, you'll have met him before. He's a Learning and Development Manager here at Shoesmiths with over 10 years experience. He's a specialist in leadership development and growth. And I'm delighted to introduce Emma Sheldon, MBE, who's joining us today. She is a founder of Innovestech, which is a consulting business, and she focuses on business leadership and as a growth consultant. She is a non-executive director and business advisor for all kinds of organizations, including the Institute of Directors, UK India Business Council, the Growth Company, the University of Stafford, Future Everything, the list goes on. She works across a number of sectors with a focus on health and digital, and she was awarded her MBE in 2017 for exporting for her work supporting international trade. And I'll just mention that she is available as a consultant to support any business who wants to focus on agility across the supply chain to make sure they remain relevant and competitive in this changing world. So welcome, Emma. Thank you very much for joining. Perhaps we could start, because I think it would be interesting for our attendees to know a little bit about the work you've been doing and what you've experienced in particular over the last few weeks.
Yes, thank you for that. I think you've explained really the two areas I focus on. One is consulting with businesses trying to grow or scale, and the other is sitting on boards of organisations, some of whom are the kind of organisations who generally help other organisations to. And I think what I'm finding in this time is the organisations I'm consulting, if you just take one market, for example, healthcare market, one business in that market is really finding that one of their products, they're just having to stop the sales of that product.
Emma, sorry to interrupt. I don't know about others. I'm finding it a little bit difficult to hear you. Yes, put your mic a little closer, and perhaps that might help.
Is that better?
Great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Yeah, so in one of the businesses that I'm working with in the healthcare market, in that same market, one of their products, they've really ceased operations in that product because they're just not able to sell. The customer group has been redeployed, quite rightly, to other areas, and so their business as usual has just stopped. Responding to something like that is, very, very difficult when you're suddenly locked down, your people are at home, everybody's got sort of in a vacuum of information, and so responding to that was quite difficult. But what they did see was an opportunity in a different part of that healthcare market to respond very quickly to the emergence of the Nightingale Hospital builds and to be able to deploy one of their different products and realign some of the sales teams, some of the business teams, and some of the product teams to really, at very fast scale, very big scale, fast pace, to realign and deploy what they were doing. So really, I think in the businesses I sit upon as well, some of the organisations there, they are designed to help other businesses find methods of growing or find finance, find business support. And in fact, they're having to think about how they do that for themselves as well at the same time as helping others. So a real mix. But I think the key word really is diverse. What I've seen is a truly diverse range of impacts on business, impacts on people, and impacts on markets. And so the way that people have then responded to those things have also been diverse. Some have withdrawn a little bit before they've been able to reset, and some have really had that sense of optimism. And that leads to so many different situations for so many individuals, and really requires a kind of thoughtfulness and empathy in the way we respond and deal with others, is what I would say. And just to close, I think it's not going to be a sprint, it's going to be a marathon. And so those different feelings and those diverse range of impacts and reactions can really very much change over time. So where somebody might be feeling good and optimistic on a certain day, that might not be the same a week later, and they might be back to feeling optimistic again the following week. And I think that's going to be something that persists as situations change. And I think it's a real issue in terms of how quickly it's happened. And similarly, it could be an issue if we suddenly are released from the lockdown. So, for me, I think there's never been a more important time to really reflect on how we want to operate as people and businesses, and how we want to think about how we adapt to changing environments.
Oh, thank you, Emma. And so, Darren, turning to you then, to pick up on some of Emma's comments there, through your role as a performance and leadership coach, what themes have you observed in behaviour over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, again, just echoing there what Emma said around individuals, and actually what I've been sort of hearing and observing a lot is around colleagues trying to coaching clients really starting to think about their performance, and it's leading to some people to start questioning the consequences of not performing at the levels that they hold themselves to, and really then, when we're in isolation, what that led me to think about and what I wanted to talk about today was what is it that we're telling ourselves, and actually how do we regulate that and make it as sort of healthy as possible. So to kick this off, I've actually got a poll question ready to go, and it's again all confidential, so we won't be tracking who said what, but I'll just encourage everyone just to have a look at the poll, and when you're ready, just please answer. So for anyone that's not listening to this live and is listening to this after the event, it's what's your reaction been to receiving a message saying we need to talk? And the range of answers is from mild curiosity, panic, gut-wrenching fear, and all-consuming thoughts. So just encourage everyone just to mark their answer to that. Just give everyone a few more seconds before we close that. Okay, we're able to show the results. Should be coming through any second now. Great. Well, thank you firstly to all of those that did respond. Yeah, absolutely. I think it very much goes in with what I'd expect there from a range of, again, everyone's different and a range of different results. Mild panic, definitely part of that. And it's just how quickly that our mind can tell ourselves, a certain story, and the event can be magnified beyond actually what the situation is. And it really got me thinking about what is it that's happening in our world at the moment, and actually how are people thinking. And there's sort of the three causes to a magnification of an event or any message, and how our thoughts can spiral. Three key areas that I wanted to focus on initially were ambiguity, which I think we could all relate to at the moment, especially in this time, really the unknown, and what impact that can have. And the second one then is around when our value or our values are under threat. And what I mean by that is when we are used to operating in a certain way with colleagues or different teams, and actually if then we're not consulted on particular projects or decisions that are made, it starts to impact and we can start to feel undermined. And again, what that thought process then looks like. And finally, just general fear, and that might be through sort of lack of communication or loss of communication with people. We start to wonder about, well, what's going on, what am I missing out on, and what could the impacts be on myself, my team, or my business now that I haven't got that, and sort of trying to regain some control of the situation. So, again, just really we're thinking about, well, what do we do about this? And again, as always, with lots of these things, and when I'm talking with coaching clients, is that personal reflection time initially, recognizing how we're feeling. So that physical, mental check-in, what is it that I'm thinking now and how am I feeling? And if we're, as Emma said, when we're going through those peaks and troughs, if we're not experiencing a great time, it's really asking yourself, so what is it that's making me feel like that? And I'd always encourage the use of what rather than why. If we start asking why am I feeling this way, then again, we can start to elaborate or make excuses and stories for ourselves, whereas with what, it's a lot more of a logical thought process. So checking in, and again, if we recognise that we're not in our most resourceful state, 6 top tips in terms of how to try and help ourselves and support ourselves back to a state of resourcefulness. And the first one for me would be around acknowledgement. And what I mean by that is actually acknowledging that, not everything is always going to be great, and there are going to be bad times. But just because yesterday was bad, it doesn't mean that every day that follows also has to be bad. And so really just recognizing that every day and every situation will be different. The second one, actually, again, using the word recognize, is recognizing when we are having those irrational thoughts, and just really just checking in on ourselves. And again, whether that's through journaling, or just, again, that sort of a daily check-in, what's going on for me. Third one might seem a bit out there for some people, But it's actually, if you do recognize that you're having that moment, and it's actually saying out loud to yourself, stop, no more. I don't want to think like this for the time being. And what that does is it stops the flow or of our thinking, and actually can help us really to just stop for a moment and actually just change our thoughts onto a different process line. So again, it might feel a bit weird for some, but actually just using that as a real opportunity to say stop can be really beneficial. Challenging yourselves, again, I think that's around just considering a more positive outcome for a particular situation that you might find yourself in, or at least a less negative one. Less negative outcome could really yield benefits for you. And then I think again around finding a positive affirmation. So if you're not feeling great, or if things aren't going quite how we'd like them to at the moment, it's reminding ourselves about a time when things have gone really well for us, and really trying to recognise that that we are still capable of achieving a really good performance, and this is when I was able to do it. Yes, situations might be different, but just having that, whether you've got that written down on your monitor down there somewhere, or you've got a picture which just really can help you recognise those moments where you've had really real positive and success. And then the final one, I know we talk about it a lot, but around that well-being and excellent self-care. The more tired or stressed we feel can actually can lead us to magnifying our thoughts. And there might be some listening going, well, that's a bit of a vicious cycle, because actually the thoughts are what's making me stressed, or actually is impacting on my sleep. And at those moments, it's really about breaking that cycle. It's doing something different to your routine. So whether you've tried a lot of the mindfulness and well-being techniques, yoga, taking walks, etc., it's finding something new and something different, just to give your brain the opportunity to disconnect from the thoughts that you're finding yourself having. I know it's misattributed to Einstein, but the thought around the definition of insanity, of doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, certainly still resonates. But again, I recognise everyone's in different situations. Some people will be able to deal with these things themselves. Some will have a support network of colleagues or friends that are around them, or a trusted mentor or advisor. What I would say is that if there are people that don't feel comfortable going to their normal support groups, or they've tried those things and it's not working for them, again, I offer external coaching, so my contact details will be available after this session. So I would encourage people to get in touch with me and the team, and we'll certainly help wherever we can. So just to summarise again, and I've rattled through those points, we've got another poll up there. We can just bring that up now. Just be really interested of the 6 recommendations that I've put there in terms of top tips, just to check in with everyone and just to see which of these might resonate with you. And if you were to do one first, which one might it be? Just give everyone a chance to consider that for a moment and answer. And I think to finish, what I would just ask is really just to really, for everyone, just after the end of this call, is what is it that I'm currently telling myself? So back to you.
Well, thank you, Darren. We'll see the results of that poll in a minute. But you mentioned about lack of communication, ambiguity, and what you're hearing. So, Emma, if I could ask you, because there might be people listening today feeling that we're obviously all subject matter experts in our fields, but are people thinking, are they missing out on business decisions? We're missing out walking the floor or going around the office. So what advice would you have to help people keep connected?
Walk the floor moments, or I would coin them corridor conversations. The background to corridor conversations, that term comes from clinicians in hospitals who would gather outside patients' rooms across sectors, across their different specialisms, and accelerate the care of that patient and the recovery of that patient, because they were able to their different specialisms accelerate the learning.
Oh, dear Emma, we seem to have lost you. I've certainly lost you. I don't know if you can hear us. You might.
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, you're back. You're back
Oh,
now.
back.
Yeah, for me anyway.
Same was clinical space, really. The patient. Okay.
Just a suggestion. I wonder if it might help if you turn your video off. Sometimes that helps with bandwidth.
Is that better?
Let's try that. Oh.
So it sounds like I think we may have lost Emma there for a moment. I mean, I know again she was. We were talking a little bit about this yesterday, and I'll just try and fill until we can get Emma back connected. I think say in terms of the corridor conversations, I said it was very much what Emma was explaining was from a clinician background where you've got lots of almost a community of practice of a lot of specialists all together that were able to talk about individual patients and actually come to a consensus and again decision quite quickly because they're all there together and be able to move things forward. And again, a lot of innovation was driven through that, and accelerated decision making was a real sort of plus from that type of environment. And I know again, Emma was quite keen to understand from the group that we have on the call today, if they've experienced this, what their experience of this has been. So if we've got a poll for that we can bring up now. Emma, do we have you back?
Can you hear me at all?
Can hear you.
Can you, yes?
Could you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Hopefully I haven't done you a disservice, but yeah.
You did great. Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Thank you.
I shall hand back over now to you.
Yeah, so I mean, the question, as Darren says, is do you feel that you're missing out on those important informal conversations, the things that happen between departments? I'll give you a moment to answer that. Okay. How's that poll gone? You got those answers, Seb?
I haven't got the answers, but there we go.
Okay, so quite a few people feeling that they're missing out. And the second question there is, if you are having those informal conversations, despite being locked down, how are you going about it? That was the next question, if we could pull those up. So are you just not having them at all? Or are you doing that by phone, by video call, or in some other way? And then once people have had a chance to answer that, I just really wanted to move on, given that some people are saying that they're not having those conversations. Just think about how we might recognise, you recognise that, some advice and some tactics on how to stay connected whilst you're working remotely, how you could perhaps add value in that situation. How's that gone, Seb?
I haven't got the results yet, but what you're saying is spot on. Please carry on.
Okay. So I think some of the things that we can do is first to recognise that there is an issue, and that pulls on what Darren was saying. And understanding where people are in their situations is really important. So you may want to consider doing something like an internal situation audit, really understanding who is experiencing what can help you avoid any risk of lack of empathy or understanding, which can lead to people being disengaged or feeling left out or put out. Some of the things Darren talked about earlier. And can you identify the networks and how they were going initially before lockdown happened? So can you really identify how those networks, how those decisions, how they were working already before lockdown by doing employee surveys, perhaps checking on the workflow analysis, really understanding how decisions were taken in the business in a more informal way and who was involved and how those conversations happened, and have conversations with those people. Clearly, quite a lot of you are doing that by video call or by phone, so make sure you're having those conversations with the right people to understand if they're now feeling left out, or if you could engage them to really make sure those business processes and informal conversations keep happening. And you talked, Darren, about people staying relevant and said that was your question. So why not be the point person to really acknowledge and get people to acknowledge that those informal conversations may not be happening, and provide people with a forum for them to happen. So perhaps breathe new life into that by recognising it and addressing it. Perhaps you could consider doing a hackathon around a problem. How could we improve business process now that we're on lockdown and we're unable to meet face to face? What can we do? Perhaps have set drop-in sessions, either publicly or privately, at a set time every day, every week, every month, just so people can drop in and be able to have informal discussions, and make sure that you're widening the net across different parts of the organisation and different sectors, so people don't work in those silos, because that's what those informal conversations really break down, is silo working, and they really allow you to have better innovation, more accelerated decision making, and greater learning. So I think being the person who can bring those back to life is really important in a very safe environment. And I think just to support with authenticity, support with understanding, because it is a diverse situation. It's ultimately important to be human in that, and to make sure that those tasks and processes you put in place provide a really safe environment for teams. Darren, have you got anything to add on that?
Well, again, I mean, I find myself just nodding to everything that you were talking there, and I think in the interest of time, I won't go too much further with it. But I think absolutely, it's really considering your internal networks and being the instigator of certain moments. And like the idea of really asking those questions and actually pulling together a lot of the key network group that you have to really come up with the innovative solutions. But again, I won't cheapen your words by going in more, but most definitely I'd certainly advocate what you said there.
Well, yeah, I can see time's drawing to the end of the session there, so we're better close it. But I can see, touched on some really important themes. So if any of you, want to put in extra questions or tell us if you think we should do more sessions on this theme so we can deal with everything, then we'll be very happy to do that. And thank you very much for joining. I look forward to seeing you at our webinar next Wednesday, when we're looking at court proceedings in lockdowns, issues about making or defending claims. And please do keep an eye on our website. So finally, thank you very much, Emma, it's great to have you on. Thank you also to Darren, and to everybody. Goodbye for now.